A Doom's perspective. My wife stands at my left, as stunning as always, but especially so in Terran green, blue, and black formal dress, the top of her head well below the level of my shoulder, even with her high heels. On my right stands my bodyguard. At a full 55 centimeters shorter than me, scarcely taller than my wife, the wiry Stetson sapiens woman doesn't look like much. She's missing one of her natural brown eyes, marking her out fairly clearly as a combat veteran, but that's the same as most Terrans her age. It would have been the same for me and my wife if the war hadn't made diplomats more desperately sought after than at any time in Terran history, for the unprecedented need to coordinate a galactic conflict without FTL comms. This woman's talent lies in what hangs at her belt. Nothing more than a length of heavy rope. Certainly not a weapon. Though, I think if the day comes where she's actually called on to use it to defend me from an attack, Parliament may decide that lassos and whips need to be rapidly reclassified. Though, perhaps not. I think most of my fellow representatives would realize that, effectively, anything can be used as a weapon in Terran hands, and decide it simply isn't worth the effort to ban them. Standing behind the three of us is a large crowd, composed of friends and family of the Voyagers, ODR personnel and parliamentary personnel. In the crowd is Vahatra, my daughter, and Winthor of the Dancing Reeds, my daughter-in-law. I still remember the day she came out to us as being in a relationship with a Tythi, preemptively defiant, only to be met with a bemused chuckle from both me and her mother, as we let her know that her being a xenophile was fine with us. I don't know that we really could have expected anything else, raising her on the galactic capital for the age of 11. Finally, the hangar's roof parts. I turn my face upwards. Citadel's skies are teeming with activity, as always. It's astonishing that, from my recollection of the few occasions I visited the cradle, Earth's skies are so comparatively quiet, a fairly robust system of free monorails being what carries the overwhelming majority of planetside travelers there. I spot what I was searching for, and fix my eyes on it as it descends through the atmosphere towards us. The ship draws close enough for me to make out its strikingly colourful, iridescent palette a moment before I see its overall shape, that of a wingless, long-necked bird. The final thing to make itself apparent is this ship's enormous size, right on the edge of most hangars' ability to handle. While still a few hundred meters up, the gigantic ship rotates in the air column to point its rear towards us. It finally sets itself down with a resounding boom of thousands of tons of material being placed, however lightly, against a surface of solid plascrete. Through the clear polymer of the boarding ramp, I'm able to see a veritable crowd of individuals of various species, all of them silhouetted by the bright interior lights as they stand there, ready to disembark. There might be a little ship lag for them to deal with over the next few days. The ramp descends towards us, slowly. I give a broad smile up it, and bring my hand to my chin to stroke my beard, as I see the collection of people starting to make their way down towards us. Among them, I see the face of an Ulat man my wife and I met 37 years ago, becoming the first Terrans ever to see and be seen by any extraterrestrial in the flesh, mere days after Master Chief Seliniana became the first to do so via transmission. As much as I would like to catch up with the captain turned commodore turned pro-deaf world advocate with whom my wife and I made history, it wouldn't be proper right now. There are two among the ones coming down this ramp that I need to prioritize welcoming. I'll have time to say hello to Tshirt over the coming days. One among the welcoming party, however, does not share my restraint regarding that man. From the friends and family segment, a slender bipedal Class 8 crocodilian woman, more than a meter taller than me, runs up the ramp. "Tshirt!" shouts the Ulat woman, at the stocky man she's approaching at high speed. "Cornet?" he answers her, bewildered. Just as I'm resolving her as having to be his sister or something, she opens her arms to wrap him in an embrace and her jaws to clamp around his stout, reptilian head in a show of affection, reserved for spouses and lovers among their kind. It takes me a moment, considering the reason that this woman being Yakchuk's partner is so surprising, before it clicks that I'd passed him as Ace the first time I met him. That assumption was then not challenged in the nearly 4 decades since. Ulat has some of the most dramatic sexual dimorphism of any species in the galaxy. Other than their reptilian scales, their 202 arrangement of fingers, and basic body plan of a head on top of an upright torso with 2 arms, 2 legs and a tail, they could not look more like an interspecies couple. Yakchuk's scales are a dark green. The woman's are pale enough to verge on white. She is around 70 centimeters taller than him, with most of the extra height coming from a long serpentine neck, in contrast to his complete lack of one, but so much slimmer that I guess her to be only half his weight. Where he has a short, stubby, vestigial tail, hers is long and whip-like. In contrast to his thick, short snout of a snout, Krogan-like head, her jaws are long enough to almost completely enclose both sides of his face. Their phenotypic dimorphism is matched by their behavioral dimorphism, male Ulat being typically more stoic and reserved, in contrast to their females, a lot more passionate and forthright. Thankfully, the only victim of this woman deciding that she simply could not wait one more moment to embrace the partner she's been separated from for the better part of 2 years is Yakchuk's dignity. The man, while clearly pleased, is also quite clearly embarrassed by the woman, who has him immobilized, right in everyone's way, and stammers up into the crocodilian mouth as the crowd pass the floor around them. It seems like the pint-sized green-skinned bipeds on their left, my right, are far from being offended by the display, actively amused by it, issuing many appreciative hoots and hollers at the pair. The large arachnoids, on their other side, simply politely ignore them. I see a woman in a glossy kimono with a silver streak in her dark hair, running ahead of the crowd and turning backward.
Representative Kakoan, Representative Veek.
She calls to her left, then right, a smile in her voice.
Please come forward.
The largest of the Vrakhand extracts herself from the throng and strides ahead towards me. One of the twig, the only distinctive aspects of her appearance being her yellow eyes and light brown hair, in contrast to the greens and blues of most of the rest, does the same on the other side. Miyazaki comes forward and places herself on my left, out of the way of my wife.
Kakoan, Veek, this is Nadum Lima Rain, the United Terran Coalition's current representative to the Parliament of the Galactic Union, and this...
She gestures Narina.
Is his wife, Narina Orchid Rain.
Instead of extending either hand for a handshake, which would necessitate either choosing which woman to acknowledge first, or, ridiculously, simultaneously extending my right hand up to the right-handed Vrakhand, and my left down to the left-handed twig, I bend to the waist, and render a low, respectful bow, aimed precisely at the space between them, saying, "It is an honor and a delight to meet both of you." My wife dips her head, pulls out the folds of her dress in a curtsy to them and says,
Likewise.
She always was a little old-fashioned, in public at least, not so much behind closed doors.
The honor is mine, Representative,
answers the Arachnoid Empress, matching my bow but still looking down from above me.
Yeah, it's good to meet you,
says the twig girl, casually, looking up at me before rendering a nod to my wife. Then, her yellow, slit-pupiled eyes flick to the other woman, standing on my right, and stare up with some interest. Taking the cue, I introduce her. Representatives, this is my bodyguard, Jailer Ryder Chevalier. The Texan woman steps forward. I'm just about able to see a mirthful smile curling her lips around the brim of her hat before she brings up a hand to his front and tips it slightly forward, greeting,
Howdy! Happy to meet y'all.
The little green girl's focus does not waver from Jailer's face after she makes her introduction. Perhaps her attention has been captured by the glowing green artificial left eye, though I'm fairly sure she's seen bionics before, given that the Raquali ship captain over there, perched on the muscular shoulder of the cute-faced redhead, has 2 bionic eyes and a bionic leg.
Well, ain't you, sweet darling?
Chuckles Jailer to the twig girl.
Don't mind the attention one bit.
The little twig girl bares her 4-fanged teeth at her, briefly terrifying me into thinking she's making a threat display before bursting into giggles. Her Vrakan counterpart looks 3 parts exasperated, 1 part amused as she sighs. Clearing my throat, I regain the groundwork caught representative's attention to ask, I apologize if this seems a little rushed, but would the 2 of you mind accompanying my wife and I back to the ODR in our vehicle just now? The rest of your respective contingents will be conveyed there shortly. There are just a few matters we would like to discuss with you alone, if that's alright. Turning her palm in a gesture of acceptance, the Empress acknowledges,
Of course, Representative. Please lead the way. No problem,
shrugs her twig counterpart. Excellent, I smile, before turning to the Japanese woman to ask, May I leave coordinating things here to you, Mistress Miyazaki? Beaming, she answers,
Absolutely, Representative. Coordination is my job, after all.
Then, if the 2 of you would follow me. I invite the very large and very small women walking away. The clack of my wife's heels, the clink of my bodyguard's spurs, the pitter-patter of the little goblinoid's digitigrade feet, and the puck-puck-puck of the enormous Spider Queen's boat shoes let me know that all 4 of them are following behind me. I lead the band of us to an ODR-owned Atmocraft with a luxurious interior, spacious enough to accommodate the 3-meter-tall, 5-meter-long Vrakan woman, as well as the rest of us. Jayla takes out her holo and runs it over the vehicle a few times to triple-check if it hasn't been tampered with while out of our sight, before pronouncing, It's clean, Haas. Thank you, Jayla, I acknowledge, receiving a tilt of her hat as she nods. I turn to my fellow representatives and gesture inside the vehicle, bidding, After you, with a smile. The 2 of them climb aboard, the 20-centimeter step up a little awkward for the sub-meter twig to manage. My wife follows them, giving me a delightful smirk as she does. I turn to Jayla, who tilts her hat backwards, giving me the opportunity to see her natural brown and synthetic green eyes in a rare moment of eye contact.
Your chivalry's wasted on me, Haas. I'm your bodyguard. Means I'm the last one in,
she observes. I chuckle and briefly throw up my palms in concession before stepping aboard. I take the seat beside my wife before the Texan woman takes a backward step aboard, her face still scanning around outside until the moment the door slides shut. The craft takes off, lifting the 5 of us over the ecumenopolitan vista of the 2nd most populated planet in the galaxy. The pair of them are clearly trying hard not to stare. My wife gives a warm smile and gestures out of the window, indulging,
It's a stunning view, isn't it?
To give them an excuse to look.
It's incredible,
says the Empress soberly.
So many people,
remarks the little brown-haired girl, standing on her seat to get a better look.
They really are, aren't they? The planet the Doom and I are from doesn't even have a 10th as many as live on this one,
says Narina. The Vrakan turns her face to her, frowning curiously.
I thought Earth was the most populous planet in the galaxy. Oh, it is,
answers my wife sweetly.
But we aren't from Earth. It's our cradle world, of course, and we visited it a few times, but our planet is actually called Lemek Vauvau. I see. I apologize for my oversight,
says the Empress.
Not at all, beams the love of my life before explaining. It's a mistake a lot of people make, Terran and non-Terran alike. My husband is actually only the 2nd of 5 representatives not to be from Earth so far. Even though Earth only makes up a little more than 3% of the UTC's population, there's definitely still a little bit of prestige attached to being from the cradle. It seems quite natural in people's minds that the one who represents Terrans ought to be from there. We take no offense. We're here, folks,
announces Jayla, as we approach the roof of Citadel's ODR main residence building. The craft touches down on the landing pad and the door slides open. The Texan steps out, her head swiveling around. My wife follows her, then Vieg, preceded by a moment where Kakoan tries to let me out first, but I respond, After you, Representative. She climbs out. As the last out of the craft, the door slides shut behind me, and it flies away to store itself.
I'd sure appreciate it if we could get off this rooftop right quick and find ourselves somewhere a bit more sheltered,
proclaims Jayla, looking all around warily, as if to spot snipers on the buildings closest to us. Let's get inside then, jailer, I accept, leading the way. We get through the door and I ask, are we okay with taking the stairs? It's just one floor, but we could take the lift if you prefer.
Stairs shouldn't be a problem for me,
declares the frack hand.
Me neither,
agrees the twig. All right then, I smile, as I lead the way down the wide, shallow, interspecies staircase. Jailer jogs ahead to be the first one to peer around the corner, where the stairs turn back on themselves. Finding no assailants, she takes over the task of guiding us down the stairs and along the corridor to Narina and I's apartment. She takes out her holo and, the second the door is open, walks inside, pointing it everywhere while running through different scans.
Clear,
she recognizes, before putting her holo away and walking back past the other four of us, out of the door we just came in.
You want staying?
Asks Vig, sounding crestfallen. The Texan woman stops, turns to face the twig girl and smirks.
Sorry, darling. I'm on duty. Much as I'd enjoy more of your company, staying outside is part of my job.
Before closing a scarred, russet brown eyelid over her glowing green bionic in a wink, putting her head out of the doorway and allowing the door to slide closed behind her. My wife and I now being left alone with the two non-Terran Death Warders, I gesture to the lounge area and suggest, shall we sit?
Sure,
replies the green-skinned one.
Indeed,
agrees the bluish-black armored one before adding,
would it be acceptable for me to seat myself on the floor?
No problem at all, smiles my wife. But do you mind if my husband and I sit on the sofa?
Please do,
answers the Empress.
I'm sitting there,
says the twig, enthusiastically indicating one of the, to her, utterly gigantic love seats before hopping up onto it, turning to face the coffee table and slumping down on the chair which makes her look like a toddler. The Empress gives a slightly exasperated sigh at her counterpart's lack of social grace, before folding her legs and dropping her underside to the floor in the space at the end of the table. Narina sits, and I take my seat beside her. So, I start. Thank you both for joining us, and I apologize if it felt a little rushed. There are just a few things we wish to discuss with both of you before anything else. Once we're done here, Jailer will show both of you to your accommodations. Representative Kakoan, you are sharing an apartment with your husband. And Mistress Miyazaki has asked me to let you know that she will be in the one next to yours. The giant woman sitting on my floor gives a pleased smile and says,
Thank you, Representative Rain and Ambassador Rain,
directing the latter to my wife. Turning to the small woman, enthroned on our love seat, I continue. Representative Vig, in line with your request, we have placed you into an apartment with 19 other twig, the remaining 2/3 of your contingent in the apartment next door and the one on the far side of that. Do let us know if you find yourself wishing for a little more privacy than that arrangement affords. We will happily oblige you.
Cool,
appreciates the small woman. My wife here chimes in.
We have done our best to make sure your rooms have been appropriately adapted for both your species' comfort and necessities, but if you find there's anything we've missed, anything you don't understand, or you have any other difficulty, you can call the concierge from the panel by the door. Jailer will show you how to do that. We are both grateful, says the Empress, speaking for both of them.
The twig girl rolls her eyes at being spoken for, but doesn't object. I allow a brief beat for them to ask clarifying questions. When none come, I decide to start. First, allow me to apologize on behalf of both the UTC and GU for the perils you have thus far been exposed to by us. The attack on your people's peace conference, the pirate boarding of the Bright Plume you were called on to aid in dealing with, and, most recently, the terroristic extortion of your genetic code from you by the Revankists, Representative Kakoan. I understand that, though not directly to blame, these are hazards you would not have been exposed to if it weren't for us, and for that, I beg your forgiveness. Please rest assured that the source of the leak at the UTCIS, which led to that organization becoming aware of your people, and the potential applications of Thanatite in the first place, is under active investigation as we speak.
Your apology is appreciated but unnecessary. Representative Rain. These are risks I would gladly undertake again for my people's sake,
answers the Vrackhand.
Yeah, no problem. You didn't do all that,
agrees the Twig. With an appreciative smile, I continue. Much as we would like to let you go, to start settling into your rooms and recuperating, we have some things that we need to talk over with you beforehand. The most pressing of the matters we must discuss is the existence of the anti-Terran faction in Parliament. Has Mistress Miyazaki discussed this with you?
No,
frowns the Twig.
Yes, she has, Vig,
corrects her counterpart, sighing. The smaller woman gives a bemused shrug and answers,
All right, maybe. There's been a lot to remember.
I smile. It seems that the small woman's species' strengths in working and procedural memory do not extend to episodic or semantic memory. Alright then, just so we're all on the same page. I bring up a holographic display of Parliament's seating plan. 33,972 species representatives, arranged in concentric rings around the speaker's platform in the center. This is a map of Parliament. This is my seat, I say, highlighting it in green. These, I highlight another 5,000 or so seats in a lighter green, are what our intelligence service have identified as the pro-Terran faction. They are species whose votes align with positions advanced by myself and former Terran representatives significantly more than chance would suggest. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that all of these representatives feel positively about us, or that they represent species that do. Some of them may be simply attempting to curry our favor, and, as unfortunate as it is to need to admit, a fair few of them may simply be frightened to vote against positions we have made our stance known on, for fear of being targeted as enemies, should the galaxy ever come to another war. Perish the thought. Most of the remainder are representatives we have identified as floating voters. I say, highlighting a little more than 20,000 in yellow. These represent a spectrum of voting patterns, some tending to align more with Terran-supported policies, some less, but all with no pattern clearly established enough that they can definitely be inferred to be basing their votes on what position they know we support. They, rather, seem to be voting either with their consciences or according to other criteria, in which we may be a factor, but not the main factor. The Vrackhand woman is paying rapt attention to my words. The Twig looks as if she's trying to, but is having trouble with boredom setting in. All of this to say, I finally highlight a little more than 6,000 seats in red. This is the anti-Terran faction. Representatives who can usually be relied on to oppose whatever position is supported by my predecessors and I. I must, again, sincerely apologize. Your species' ascension to the Galactic Union should not be contentious, but we are almost certain it will be. With me supporting you, all of these seats can be relied on to not only vote against your acceptance, which should already make your species' admittance the second most voted against in galactic history, after only my own's, but to do their utmost to convince the floating voters to do so as well.
Representative, if it weren't for the war your people fought most of my lifetime ago, we are fully aware that, upon discovery, our planet would have been laid waste, rather than consider for membership by the Galactic Union. Your apology is, once more, unnecessary,
chides the Empress. Grunts the Twig, in emphatic agreement. Thank you, representatives. I smiled before continuing. I could not possibly ask you to remember all species currently aligned with the anti-Terran faction. Even I don't have them memorized, and I've been in this job for well over a year now. But there's one who I will ask you to remember. I bring up a picture of a woman. Her species looks like a cross between wombats and gibbons. This is Princess Brathala, representative of the Batan, and the unofficial spearhead of the anti-Terran faction. She's the one you most need to watch out for.